I knew something was wrong the moment my boss asked, "Why would you say that about the department, Mark?" Because I never said a damn thing. Let me back up. My name is Mark Allison, Senior Project Analyst at Westridge Technologies. At least, that's the title I still had before everything started to unravel. For 3 years, I'd been grinding toward a promotion to lead analyst. Everyone knew I was the frontrunner. Everyone also knew that Daniel Price, my so-called mentor, was supposed to be helping me get there. Mentor. What a joke. Daniel had been at the company for 15 years, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and a permanent smirk. He loved being the center of attention. He loved being needed. What he didn't love was the idea of me, his protégé, surpassing him. But back then, I didn't see it. I thought we were close. I thought we were a team. When I first joined Westridge, Daniel guided me through everything: office politics, project workflows, even where to get the best coffee in the building. He'd pat my shoulder and tell people, "Mark's my guy. Smartest one on the team." And I'll admit it, I admired him. I trusted him. Maybe too much. The promotion announcement was supposed to be made in 2 weeks. I'd completed every project flawlessly. My performance reviews were stellar. Senior leadership had started copying me on emails they never would have trusted me with a year earlier. And then suddenly, tension. My manager, Julia, began acting colder. Meetings I was normally invited to happened without me. Documents I drafted came back with clarification needed scribbled across pages I knew were airtight. But the worst moment, the moment that cracked everything open, was that conversation in her office. She held her laptop toward me, mouth pressed into a thin line. "Mark, can you explain this?" It was an email. Supposedly from me, saying that our department was a sinking ship under incompetent leadership. I remember my stomach dropping, my voice catching somewhere between confusion and indignation. I never wrote this. Julia didn't accuse me outright. But she didn't hide her doubt either. "Well, it came from your workstation." And it had been sent at a time I knew I was away from my desk, presenting a progress update. A progress update Daniel insisted I give alone while he handled another issue. When I walked out of her office, Daniel leaned against the corridor wall, coffee in hand, expression unreadable. "Everything okay?" he asked lightly. His tone was casual. Too casual. It was the first time I felt a cold, crawling thought at the back of my mind. What if Daniel wasn't guiding me at all? What if he was tightening the leash? I tried to shake off the whole email incident, but the doubt settled in my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. Red flags didn't come all at once. They slipped in quietly, one after another, like they were testing how much I'd tolerate. The first one came the next morning. I got to the office early, as usual, but Daniel was already there, something that never happened. He was a late morning guy, always strutting in with a latte around 9:45 like the workday began when he arrived. But that day, he was in my cubicle. Not near it. Not passing by. Inside it. When he heard my footsteps, he straightened up so fast he almost knocked over my chair. "Oh, Mark. Early bird today," he said with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. I glanced at my computer. The mouse was warm. My email inbox was open. "Everything okay?" I asked slowly. Yeah. Just checking something on the project files." He brushed past me so quickly he didn't notice, or didn't care, that I hadn't given him permission. Red flag number 2 hit at lunch. We were in the break room when Julia walked in, chatting with our department VP. Normally Julia would loop me into the conversation. She'd liked my input, had even praised my initiative in front of upper management. But this time, she didn't even look at me. Even stranger, she acknowledged Daniel immediately. "Daniel. Glad I caught you. We should discuss the budget proposal later." Budget proposal? Our proposal? That was my project. I'd done the last 3 weeks of groundwork. Daniel just nodded with this fake, modest shrug. Of course. Happy to go over it. My stomach tightened. Why was Julia talking to him like he was leading it? After they left, I rounded on him. "Budget proposal? Since when are you presenting that?" He gave me that easygoing grin again, the one that used to mean I could relax. Now it felt rehearsed. Oh, relax. Julia asked me to take a look at it. Just smoothing out some numbers while you focus on your presentation next week. Except, I didn't have a presentation next week. Red flag number 3 arrived that evening. I was packing up when the cleaning staff passed through. One of them paused by my desk and gestured to Daniel's office. He's been staying really late, she said. They're most nights after everyone leaves. That by itself wasn't strange. But combined with everything else, and the fact that he always left his door cracked open with the light on, as if hoping someone would notice, it didn't sit right. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid. I tried to believe Daniel wouldn't do anything to hurt me. He'd been there from the beginning. He'd vouched for me. He'd helped me grow. But each new red flag tugged at my chest harder than the last. And the worst part, I still had no idea what he was planning. Only that whatever it was, it involved me. I didn't learn the truth from Daniel. I learned it from a printer jam. 3 days after the red flags started piling up, I was in the copy room trying to unstick a wad of reports someone shoved into the machine. While digging in the lower tray, a fresh stack slid out, documents I hadn't printed, but that were queued under my employee ID. The header read, Leadership Promotion Evaluation, Daniel Price. I froze. Why would I be printing Daniel's evaluation? Curiosity, or maybe fear, made me read. The first page was a summary of his accomplishments on the budget proposal. Except they weren't his accomplishments. They were mine. Word for word from the drafts on my drive. I flipped the page. There was a glowing recommendation paragraph supposedly written by me. Except, I never wrote it. And the signature block was forged. But the last page hit the hardest. A comparison chart between candidates for the lead analyst promotion. Next to my name. Unreliable. Poor judgment. Recently demonstrated insubordination. Next to Daniel's name. Outstanding. Consistently exceeds expectations. Trusted by colleagues. My chest tightened so hard I had to grip the printer. Somewhere between the shock and the bile rising in my throat, my brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe these were drafts. Maybe someone mixed things up. But then I saw the metadata at the bottom. Prepared by D. Price. Date stamped yesterday. My stomach dropped. He was rewriting my work. Inflating his contributions. Planting lies about my behavior. And slipping it directly to senior management. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was sabotage. I didn't realize Julia had walked in until she spoke. Mark. Are you okay? I spun around, the pages still in my shaking hands. Did you authorize Daniel to submit this? Her face changed, tightened, cautious, too calm. I reviewed it this morning. So you think I'm unreliable now? That I'm sabotaging my own promotion? Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. Daniel expressed concerns about your recent behavior. Missing deadlines. Inaccurate reports. Disrespectful comments. My voice cracked. None of that happened. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. It was already done. When she left, I stayed frozen in the copy room, staring at the pages. A sickening mix of betrayal and humiliation burned through my chest. Daniel had been planning this. The late nights, the secret budget meetings, the email from my workstation, it all fit. He wanted my promotion. He wanted me out of the way. And he wanted to look like the hero who exposed my weaknesses. The anger hit then, hot, sharp, electrifying. But beneath the fury was something stronger. Clarity. If Daniel thought he'd cornered me, he didn't know me at all. Because I wasn't going to let him win. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to plead with management. I was going to dismantle his entire strategy, quietly, precisely, and at the perfect moment. He'd made one mistake. He taught me exactly how he operates. And I was ready to use it against him. I didn't go back to my desk right away. I wandered out of the copy room in a daze, the forged documents clutched so tightly in my fist the pages were starting to crumple. My ears rang. Every footstep in the hallway sounded like it was underwater. I must have looked unhinged, wide-eyed, tense, blinking too fast, but I didn't care. Daniel had gutted my reputation from the inside out. And the worst part, he'd done it with a smile. I ended up in the parking garage, dim, echoing, the kind of place where emotions feel louder. I leaned against the cold concrete wall and finally let myself breathe, really breathe, for the first time since this nightmare began. The shock lingered, but the hurt hit in waves. I'd trusted him, admired him, built my career under his guidance. And he'd used every bit of that closeness to sharpen the knife he put in my back. I pressed my palms against my eyes until stars bloomed. Part of me wanted to curl up, to give in, to accept the narrative he'd built around me. After all, he'd been here 15 years. Senior leadership loved him. He knew exactly how to twist the truth to his advantage. What chance did I have? The thought made my chest ache, and then burn. That was when the trigger moment came. A car pulled into the garage, its headlights cutting across the concrete. The driver stepped out, talking loudly on the phone. He laughed, and the sound bounced sharply off the walls. It was Daniel. He didn't see me tucked in the shadow of the ramp. But I saw him, relaxed, confident, swinging his coat over his shoulder like a man who'd already won. And then I heard him speak. "Yeah, he won't see it coming," he said into the phone. "Promotions locked in. I handled everything." My heart stopped. Handled everything. My work. My reputation. My future. And he sounded proud of himself. Proud. Something shifted inside me then. Not anger. Not grief. Resolve. The same intensity one used in every project, every late-night grind, every challenge thrown at me, snapped into focus. I wasn't done. I wasn't beaten. And I wasn't about to let a manipulative coward rewrite my entire career. He thought he had control because he'd studied me. But what he never understood was that studying someone is not the same as knowing them. I straightened, the shaking in my hands dissolving into something steadier. My breath came calmer, sharper. I felt the hurt drain out and leave something far more dangerous behind. I wasn't going to react impulsively or confront him in rage. No. I was going to think, strategize, prepare. And when I moved, it would be with precision. Daniel had sabotaged my promotion. But now, I was going to sabotage his strategy, piece by piece, from the inside out. Planning felt like work, and thank God for that. My anger had to be useful. It had to be precise. No theatrics. No bluster. Just a cold, surgical unraveling of the story Daniel had written about me. I copied every suspicious email, every draft, every version history I could find. If he'd been forging documents, there would be breadcrumbs in metadata, timestamps, and saved versions. I pulled the printer logs, the same machine that spat out his evaluation, screenshotting the job queue and the prepared by field. I asked the cleaner, casually, like asking for office gossip, what nights Daniel stayed late. She told me dates. I noted them. Anyone who's ever been in analytics knows timelines are unforgiving. I mapped out who accessed which files and when. Version history on our shared drive was my friend. It recorded edits and accounts. I cross-checked keycard entries to Daniel's office against those edit times. There were too many overlaps. His card swiped past midnight the night my missing report was supposedly altered. I printed that, too. I didn't want Daniel to get tipped off, so I went to Mia in IT. She owed me a favor after I'd stayed late debugging her automated report months ago. I didn't mention revenge, just asked for logs for a routine audit. She gave me server access timestamps, IP addresses, and a copy of the email headers we'd been misattributed by. One header showed a suspicious route, an internal redirect that made my workstation look guilty. Mia helped me isolate the redirect and traced it back to an account that often forwarded files to Daniel's personal email. Bingo. My quiet conversation with Julia 3 days earlier had rattled her. She'd admitted she'd assumed the worst because she trusted Daniel. She agreed to look at the timeline, hesitantly at first, then with growing alarm. Her willingness to listen was the crack I needed. If proof existed in logs and versions, I needed Daniel to touch something that would make his fingerprints obvious. So I uploaded a decoy file to the shared project folder, labeled exactly how he would label something he wanted to improve, final_presentation_v6_ for Julia. It contained deliberate, minor errors and a hidden cell in the spreadsheet flagged to log the editor's account every time it was changed. I made sure only 2 people received automatic notifications of edits, Julia and me. I watched him like a hawk. For 2 days, Daniel strutted around as if nothing had changed, smiling in meetings, taking credit in side conversations, still confident the promotion was his. He even sent a congratulatory Slack to himself in a tone so smug it felt like a dare. Then, as the promotion review approached, he opened my decoy document. The hidden log recorded his account making edits and exporting the file. He forwarded it to senior leadership with his usual flourish. My phone buzzed with the alert I'd been waiting for, an automatic change notification to Julia with Daniel's user ID attached. He still thought he was in control. He still smiled like a man who'd already won. I hit compile on the dossier, metadata, keycard logs, server traces, the decoy's edit log, Mia's notes, and the cleaner's dates, stacked in neat, indisputable order. Then I scheduled a meeting with HR and the VP. Because when I walked in with everything laid out, either Daniel's empire collapsed, or he'd make one final, catastrophic move to stop me. And he had no idea which. The conference room was too quiet, dangerously quiet, the kind that makes every heartbeat sound like a hammer. I sat at the long glass table with my folder of evidence in front of me, hands steady, pulse strangely calm. On the other side sat HR Director Keller, the VP of Operations, and a very tense-looking Julia. There was one empty chair at the table. Daniel's. Right on cue, he walked in with the swagger of a man who'd come to collect a trophy. "You needed me," he said, closing the door gently behind him. He nodded at the VP. "Is this about the promotion? I have some final remarks that might help." "Sit down, Daniel," the VP said, flat and cold. That was the first crack in his confidence. I slid the thick dossier toward the middle of the table. "This," I said, "is everything you need to see." Daniel frowned. "What's that?" Keller opened the folder. The top page, the printer log with his user ID preparing his glowing self-evaluation, stared back at us like an accusation carved in stone. The VP's voice was low. "Mark has brought forward serious allegations regarding misconduct." Daniel let out a scoffing laugh. "Misconduct? I think Mark's a bit emotional right now." "Turn to page 2, I said. Page 2, the version history showing Daniel editing the budget proposal at 12:47 a.m., the same night he told me he was home early. Page 3, keycard logs placing him in the office during every instance of suspicious file alterations. Page 4, server headers proving the email from my workstation had come from a redirected internal spoof, one that regularly forwarded documents to Daniel's personal email. I watched confidence drain from his face, replaced by something darker, calculation. He still thought he could talk his way out. "This is all taken out of context," he said quickly. I was correcting Mark's mistakes. The leadership team needed accuracy. "Page 6, Julia said quietly. Daniel froze. That page held the decoy file's hidden edit log, time-stamped, undeniable, tied directly to his account. His fingerprints were everywhere. The VP clasped his hands. "Not only did you sabotage a colleague, you attempted to manipulate a promotion evaluation. This is a serious ethics violation." Daniel's voice strangled into a whisper. This is ridiculous. Mark set this up." "You incriminated yourself," I said. "All I did was stop you from touching anything else that wasn't yours." Keller closed the folder with a decisive snap. "Effective immediately, Daniel. You're suspended pending termination review. Security is waiting outside." The door opened. 2 security officers stepped in. Daniel stood, face blotched red, composure shattering. "You think you're heroes? You think he's innocent? He used me. I built everything for this department." "You built lies," the VP said. And you got caught. The officers escorted him out as he sputtered desperate, incoherent protests. When the door shut, silence settled over the room again, except this time, it felt lighter. Cleaner. Julia exhaled deeply and turned to me. Mark. I'm sorry. I should have questioned things sooner. I nodded. We all should have. The VP looked at me thoughtfully. We'll need to revisit the promotion discussion, with the truth in mind. I didn't smile. Not yet. I wasn't celebrating Daniel's downfall. I was celebrating the moment he finally realized. You can sabotage a man's promotion, but you can't sabotage the truth forever. Daniel's office was empty the next morning. Desk cleared, nameplate gone, blinds half open like someone had left in a hurry. The kind of departure that doesn't come with goodbye emails or farewell cupcakes. Just silence. Word spread through the building faster than any memo ever could. People whispered in hallways, lowered voices in elevators, exchanged glances when they passed me. Not pity, something closer to respect, and shock. By noon, HR released a statement. Daniel Price is no longer employed at Westridge Technologies. Violations of ethical conduct have been confirmed. And just like that, the man who tried to rewrite my future no longer had won at the company. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. Clear. Like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't realize had gone stale. That afternoon, Julia called me into her office. But this time, her voice wasn't rigid or cold. It held something unfamiliar. Gratitude. Mark, she began softly. I owe you more than an apology. You could have lashed out. You could have made this ugly. Instead, you brought the truth with a level head. She offered a small, apologetic smile. You showed more leadership in the past week than most people show in a decade. She slid a folder across her desk. For your review. I opened it. Inside was the official letter. Promotion to lead analyst. Effective immediately. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I finally felt something I hadn't felt in months. Seen. Valued. Not because Daniel vouched for me. Not because someone pulled strings. But because the truth, my truth, stood on its own. My team congratulated me that afternoon, but the moment that stuck came later, in the break room. The cleaner, Marta, approached me with a warm smile. You look lighter, she said. I feel lighter. She nodded knowingly. Bad men dig holes for others. Then she tapped the side of her head. But sometimes they forget to stop digging. I swear the universe applauded her for that one. Over the next few weeks, the office settled. Projects moved forward. Meetings felt normal again. And slowly, people stopped talking about Daniel. His absence became just that, an absence, not a shadow. And me. I didn't become colder. I didn't become paranoid. I became smarter. Daniel tried to sabotage my promotion. All he did was pave the road for it. In the end, his downfall wasn't my revenge. It was his own strategy turned against him. Poetic justice always echoes the liar's voice. It just finally tells the truth. If you've ever dealt with betrayal, at work, in friendships, anywhere, tell me in the comments. What did you do? How did you handle it? And if you enjoyed this story and want more jaw-dropping revenge tales like this, hit that subscribe button. You never know whose schemes will unravel next.